5:09 p.m. and good evening. Welcome to the Design and Review Board meeting of February 13th, 2025. The DRB meeting is now called to order. Please refrain from talking among yourselves during the meeting and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones at this time. For public comments and questions during the meeting, please call 818-937-8100. City staff will be submitting the questions and comments in real time to the appropriate person. Current DRB agendas and staff reports are available by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. Records of decisions for all projects will be posted online on the Planning Division's website. A handout describing the procedures of the meeting, possible board decisions, and DRB appeal is available from staff. Please note that any appeal of a case heard today must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. Meetings are also archived on the city website for viewing anytime at glendaleca.gov/agendas. Roll call. Madam Chair Lockruff?
Present.
Board Member Cascania?
Present.
Board Member Welch?
Present.
And Board Member Simonian is absent today. Reports regarding posting of agenda. The agenda for the February 13th, 2025 regular meeting of the Glendale Design Review Board was posted on the city's website on February 6th, 2025, and on the bulletin board outside City Hall on February 10th, 2025. Approval of minutes. We have approval of minutes for the Design Review Board meeting of January 23rd, 2025.
Do we have a motion? We don't have a quorum to be able to do it, right?
So we will move that to the next meeting. Oral communications. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda.
I'm sorry. Can you keep your voices down, please? Excuse me. Can you keep your voices down, please? Thank you.
Thank you. Oral communication. Discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is limited to 5 minutes. Design Review Board may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. I do not have any oral communications. Okay. Board member comments?
I don't have any at this time.
We do have to elect a new chair, though.
Okay.
So,
I would
I
like
would
to
like-
go ahead and elect the chair, and it was then nomination.
I would like to nominate Chair Member Kaskanian, or not chair, but board member
Board member
for
Cascania.
chair.
and I'll second that nomination.
Okay. We'll take a roll call on that. Board member Lockruff
Yes.
and board member Welch.
Yes.
Okay, and board member
Yes.
Kaskanian, you are the new chair.
Thank you. Congratulations, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, thank you.
Okay. Well, welcome, Chair Kaskanian.
Thank you.
We do not have any old business, so we will move under new business. And the first item is 2971 St. Gregory Road, Design Review Board Case 003745-2024. And we have our case planner, Eileen Babahani.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Today's first case is a design review application with the case number 003745-2024 for the proposed development located at 2971 St. Gregory Road. The project is proposing to construct a new 2,872 square foot, two-story, single-family residence with an attached two-car garage on a 13,765 square foot hillside vacant lot with an average current slope of approximately 38%. This lot is located in the R1R zone, floor area ratio district 2. The vacant lot is irregular in shape and slopes down from the street frontage. The project will involve approximately 700 cubic yard of grading, and 68% of the site will remain as ungraded open space with this construction. The site and its vicinity contain 29 protected oak trees. The proposed development tries to minimize impact on these trees, but due to the space restriction on the site, in conjunction with this proposal, 11 live and 2 dead oak tree need to be removed. The project will protect 16 oak trees, remaining oak trees. Urban Forestry reviewed the proposal and supported tree removal, and these tree removals, and requires that 7 new oak trees for the removal of 2 of the oak trees to be planted, and as determined by Urban Forestry staff due to the space restriction, the applicant is required to pay in lieu fees for the off-site tree replacement for the remaining trees that are going to be removed. The arborist report and also Urban Forestry comments are attached to the staff report for your reference. Here I have the photos of the existing condition. We have the photo from the street, as you see the story pulls up, and also another photo shows the slope part of the site as its condition with the story poles. For the project site planning, the proposed house follows the site's topography, which slopes down with respect to the multiple protected trees located on the site, and within 20 feet of the site, the L-shaped building footprint along with the rear pool deck is appropriately integrated into the site and is in keeping with the neighborhood context. The new house meets the required interior and street front setbacks, and the street front setback provided here is 15 feet and 3 inches. The design and location of the attached 2-car garage and driveway with the creative stamped concrete finish are compatible as well with the overall design concept and neighborhood context. The proposed board-formed concrete retaining walls will have the maximum height of 5 feet, and they will be located at the side and rear of this house. New drought-tolerant landscaping is proposed that complements the building design. A condition of approval requires the landscape plan to be updated to accurately show the appropriate location of the new oak trees as required to be planted by Urban Forestry. Here I have the floor plan of the upper floor design for this house. And here I have the lower floor of this house. And this is a slide. For the mass and scale discussion, the proposed project, which includes the new house, attached 2-car garage, rear terraces, and also pool deck, is appropriate to the site and relates to the surrounding context of 1, 2, and 3-story homes designed in various architectural styles. This particular design reinforces a contemporary architectural concept. Here we have the front facade and also the rear facade of the house. The design includes proportions and transition in mass and scale, the colors and variation in materials with the proposed step backs help the building to visually blend with the existing site and its neighborhood. Also, due to the site downsloping topography, the new house will have a minimal visual impact from the street because only the top portion of the top floor of the house will be partially visible from the street. The proposed roof for this design consists of the hipped roof with 3 feet in 12 feet pitch, reinforcing the design concept. The house will have an overall height of 32 feet and 5 inches, which is less than the maximum allowed 35 feet in this zone. I also have the north side elevation here. This is facing north. and the south facade. Moving forward, I put also the section drawing through the house on this slide. And in terms of the architectural details and colors of this proposed project, the details reinforces the proposed contemporary architectural concept and meets the intent of the city's hillside design guidelines. The proposed exterior materials includes light and dark gray color smooth stucco finish, also natural color composite wood siding. For the other details, the location and design of the front entry and steps are well integrated into the design and reinforce the proposed design concept. The proposed fenestration complements the design concept and features recessed black color aluminum windows with an appropriate combination of casement, horizontal siding, and fixed operation. The windows will not have any exterior steel and frame. The design of the gutters and downspout are appropriate to the design, and also new air conditioning unit and trash storage bins are located away from public view. The proposed design and placement of the light fixture on the front facade are appropriate to the overall design, and the project does not propose any light fixture at the rear or side elevations. The proposed house will not create privacy conflicts with the surrounding neighbors since there are no direct views from windows of public rooms and outdoor areas to neighboring homes on north, south, and west sides. Additionally, there are significant distances and landscaping buffers between the proposed house and neighboring homes. In conclusion, staff recommends approval of this project with 2 conditions. Condition number 1 is to update landscape plan to accurately show the appropriate location of the new oak trees as required by urban forestry. And also condition number 2, prepare a tree protection plan to comply with the urban forestry requirements and obtain an indigenous tree permit and a street tree permit from the Maintenance Service Division or urban forestry. Before I conclude my presentation, I would like to mention the staff received public comments for this design review case in form of emails in opposition of removal of oak trees. All emails were provided to the design review board members for their review and consideration. With this, I conclude my presentation. Planning staff is available for any question. We also have our arborist technician, Mr. Joe Munoz, here with us for any questions.
Thank you very much. Any questions for staff?
This may be more of a question for the applicant, but the plans seem to show one of the oak trees there on the site, like right where the L of the house is. But it's called out in the arborist report as being removed. Do we know if that's being retained or being removed?
Are you referring, Mr. Welch, to the trees next to the pool deck?
It's kind of next to the pool deck, yes, but inside the house, inside the property, not on the edge.
Could you pull up maybe the
Let me see
second plan
exactly.
where with the yellow? Yeah, thank you.
The site plan with the
The
oak
site plan
trees?
that had yellow, yeah, all the oak trees noted. Thank
I'm
you.
going there. That was a good one. Here.
Yes, right there.
You may mention, if you can see the numbers, which number is that?
I can't see those numbers, but it's the one that's closest to the center of the site, right there,
this one?
exactly,
9?
that one.
This, I believe, is planned to be removed.
Okay, but in the plans that the applicant provided, that tree is shown as there, and in the landscape plan, it was there. So I'm
Maybe-
just, so maybe I'll address it to the applicant, but that was one of the things
That's
I
a good
needed
thing
some
that the tree is there.
clarification.
Similarly, I was not clear from the materials received. I don't think we had this plan, which
Sorry, Lakarov, this is part of the arborist report.
I see. I missed that part of the report. But no, I guess, yeah, I wanted to have clarification on exactly which trees were being removed. I saw the list of the report of which ones were removed, but I missed this this section, so that's helpful to understand. And I guess this might be a question for the city arborist too, is just the trees that are proposed to be removed there were several, maybe 5 of them that are just close to the foundation. Did you determine that there was no way of saving those with the current, if there was hand digging or something like that, is there no way that those trees could be saved?
Right, yes, correct. It was determined that with the existing plan proposed, those trees would not be candidates for preservation at this time.
Okay. And what distance would be required to do that?
Yes, typically tree protection is going to be the distance of the canopy plus 1 foot.
Right. Right. And I do have another question for staff. For the tree replacements, what size trees are they? How mature are they?
Yes, so for one of the trees, we're actually requiring the developer to mitigate the replacement of tree number 1 with a 36-inch box.
Okay.
That's for tree number 1, and for the remainder trees, they would be 24-inch box.
Okay, thank you. Are there any?
Any other questions?
Sorry.
Okay. No more questions for staff, so we'll move over to public comments. I have applicant Artem Golestian. If you want to start? Yeah. If you could just start by saying your name.
Artem Golestian.
Thank you.
I'm the designer and the builder of the project. Pretty much this site is constrained by the trees and the topography, and the building is placed on the only flat area of the lot, which. Put the topo map.
Yes.
If you could have since they can't hear you, you need to speak from here, and you could point like that. Sorry about that.
Right.
Topo map. Don't have it here.
I can show it on the section.
In the section, here
Yeah.
you go.
So, you see the existing grade? It's a dashed line that goes from the street coming down. So there's a portion, right there, it's the flat area.
Okay.
A little bit, if you point a little bit further down,
Towards the end. Yeah.
where the dashed line becomes horizontal.
Right
Yeah, right there. So this is the only flat area of the lot. Pretty much the design started with placing the house there. And then from that point, obviously we need to carve a garage. And then put the garage and then fill in the gap. And that's how we got the massing of the property. So there's pretty much no other way to do this for a size, for this family to be able to fit in there. And the house is not there's some emails going around in the homeowners association. I think they have some wrong information, saying it's developers who want to chop down all the trees. It's actually for this family, and we're trying to preserve as many trees as possible. And that's why there's discrepancy in the tree report and in the plans, is because we tried to keep them, but our arborist told us, you can try, but it's probably going to die. So we did our best. That's why there's that discrepancy.
Thank you.
If you have any questions.
Any questions?
Well,
Yeah.
I just want to clarify the question that I raised before. So you said there's a discrepancy, but are you intending to keep that tree?
We could try it. That one tree, yeah.
That
We
one
want
tree?
to keep it, but our arborist told us if you start digging that close to it, it might die. Or it might die, we don't know. Because nobody knows how the roots are actually.
So you say you started from the perspective of focusing on the flat area, but, I think I would have preferred seeing you start with the focus on minimizing the tree loss. So did you explore, because I visited the site, I looked at the arborist report. It seems to me that if you were to align the house more along the northerly property line as opposed to the southerly, that there are less mature trees that would have been impacted, and you could have done a design that would have at least preserved the most mature, largest trees with the largest canopies. Instead, what this plan does is basically guts out the largest and biggest canopy trees. So did you at all explore that?
I did. We can't get the height to accommodate what is needed for the family to make sense for them to build this house.
How does that, what do you mean you can't get the height?
So if I go on the north side of the property, it's very steep there. So the moment you're about 30 feet out from the curb, you're already exceeding the height limit.
Oh, okay, so you're exceeding the height limit. It's not-
If I
okay,
push the house that way.
I see.
And as far as the oak trees go, our arborist told us that this is a little bit too dense. The oak trees aren't even happy like this. That's why some of them are dying. So by cutting them down, we're gonna give them room to breathe.
Okay.
Board Member Welch, actually, among the staff, we discussed your question, and if you can go over explaining the condition of the trees on the north side of the site in relation to the site layout to be changed or?
Yes, so Chairman and members of the board, as Eileen was mentioning, we discussed different footprints and different placement of the structure. And it was found that in agreement with the private arborist report, many of the trees that are proposed to be removed are indeed found to be under what's called suppression, which is basically overcrowding. That was one of the findings that we determined. However, the forestry section is more than happy to review any subsequent resubmittals, proposing different footprint.
Okay.
Any other questions? Nope.
No, not at this time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next we got the owners, John and Laura Wong. Whoever would like to come up, or you guys could both come up at the same time. Just make sure to say your name, please, and, yeah.
John Wong.
And Laura Wong.
And we are the owners of the property. We purchased this property thinking this could be our first home for our family. We bought it from a couple who had a distressed divorce, and we saw that they were trying to build a massive mansion on here with an elevator, and we knew that this lot wasn't something that warrants that kind of mega mansion in that area. It doesn't match the neighborhood. So we built this house with Artem with the idea of trying to fit in. That's why we built this house like low to short to show that it's a one-story house, but it stretches along the bottom end of it. And, we had the idea of trying to impact this as little as possible in the area and trying to match the neighborhood as much as we could.
Yeah. We also introduced ourselves to our surrounding neighbors, which is the triangle. Those are the neighbors that will be hearing most of the noise because they're right on the side and right below. And unfortunately, one of the neighbors wasn't home that day. This is 3 days ago, right? But the neighbor that lives on the bottom of the hill where we are, that's the Chevy Chase Drive, he did mention that he's very happy that it's going to be put to good use and that he's going to have someone there. And the neighbor on the
To the right of
To the
us,
right
I
of-
guess, if you're looking at the map.
Yeah.
North of us.
he also mentioned that he's happy that, quoting him, the land's going to be put to good use.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Well, both neighbors were very accommodative to the idea of building a house on this, and also understood the noise that might be coming up, especially the neighbor behind us. He was very receptive to it. His name was Ben. I think he was at 580 Chevy Chase. But we went there proactively to meet them, to let them know what we plan to do, and and let them know that they can contact us if they have any type of concerns of us doing what we're planning to do.
We
And
also gave them
gave them
copies.
copies of our plans too.
The same ones you're holding,
They
those
have-
neighbors
they
have
them
them,
also.
exactly.
Awesome.
So we're trying to take the necessary precautions and, greet our neighbors as well. And don't we also know the other neighbor that's
that just built a new house, I think?
Oh, yes, Michael. We've spoken to him about, I guess he built a home, I guess owns the lot that has 2 homes on it right now, but he's just adjacent to, south of where we are. And, you know, we've talked to him about his process and going through it. So we're really well involved in what's going on in the street, you know, for I guess a group that, you know, just came in a year and a half ago. So we're deeply involved in this, is what I'm saying.
Awesome.
Like we said, it's just our family home, so.
This is our first home we're building, and we're hoping this is going to be our forever home. And we're hoping to take care of everything that we need to do to get there.
Thank you.
It's very nice to meet you guys.
You too. Bless you.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You don't have any questions for us, right?
No,
No.
not at this time.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, we have Palma Vincenti. Again, if you could please state your name and speak into the mic, please.
Yes, my
Thank
name
you.
is Palma Vincenti, and I'm here representing the Chevy Chase Estates Association, as well as myself personally. I'm a Glendale native, and I've lived in Upper Chevy Chase Canyon for the past over 40 years, but I was raised on Chevy Chase Drive since I was 5 years old in the home that my parents built. So I have a long history with the canyon, but what I'm here to discuss with you today is really not based on any sentimentality on my part, but really hard science that we have studied regarding how important an ancient grove of oak trees, such as the one on this property, is. We've been in touch with people from the Theodore Payne Foundation, had countless talks with the fire department and with their personnel, also with people from the Los Angeles County who take a look at oak trees in our area and are in charge of weed abatement. So particularly in light of the terrible wildfires that have struck very nearby, we're very, very interested in preserving the oak trees because of everything that has come to light very recently about how beneficial they are for stopping fires. And one of those things is the fact that the oak leaves are very leathery, and they almost like our little hands that catch those flying embers, which is exactly what made West Altadena burn. They can travel from miles away. Also, as far as providing shade so that other kind of invasive vegetation that grows underneath when you don't have a thick oak forest will grow and provide, when they dry out, ladder fuel. You don't have that on that lot right now. And as a matter of fact, you have a red curb painted all along the front of it. Have you discussed with the fire department why that is there? It's a very, very narrow road. And considering the fact that we were just recently evacuated during these wildfires, that's a tiny road that spills down into Chevy Chase Drive. And when you get a call in the dark because of a power outage and a need to evacuate immediately, do you know how many cars are going down that steep canyon that's narrow? So I just question very much the safety of putting another home there. And I hope that you'll consider the information we've given you and deny this request to build. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Narciso Solanto. Thank you. If you could just please say your name in the mic.
Yeah, Narciso Solano,
Thank you.
and I live just right across the street. And to me, most of the trees look very healthy. I'm not an arborist, I'm not a professional, I just like to view. And I'm just going to echo what you said. I I wanted to say the same thing, but I just don't want to repeat what you said, which is really true. And not only that, I just want to emphasize one more thing. We're going to miss the owl. We're going to miss the owls and the wildlife that lives there almost permanently. The owls live there at night. The hawks nest and have babies there. The parrots come in the summertime. They use that as a house. I mean, I'm not against construction, but cutting those trees is also cutting the life of wildlife. We have experience with bears in that area where they go and nest, and deer and all kind of wildlife. They use that as a pathway to Chevy Chase and to the mountains from Chevy Chase too. I just wonder how they're going to protect the other trees from the construction. Don't they supposed to have a protection around the tree? I mean, I'm kind of curious how they're going to handle that. Like she was telling the space on that particular corner of the street is very narrow. Recently, we had an incident where we all had to evacuate, and a tree fell down in there. It was actually blocking the street. It was very difficult for the people who live at the street to come down. If there's a car parking there at that time, they're going to be in big trouble. So I'm here to oppose the construction on that building, and I hope you consider all those things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last speaker we have cards for is Richard Coppola.
Okay, my name's Richard Coppola, and I'm a red curb guy. We had a problem there about 5 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, with accidents on that curve. There was no red curb, and one was okay, the second one was serious. And so we took 52 people, gave petitions to the city to put in a red curb. And we came to the city and we said, look, if you don't do this, the chances of another accident happening are great. So could you please put a red curb in there? Because if there's a third accident, would there be some liability here? We have 52 people that want to petition. If that's turned down, where do we go from there? So they said, okay. So they painted the curb red. The only thing that I'm concerned about is that you please keep the red curb. Because if you do not, the chances of another accident happening are quite great. And again, we start talking about liability problems. So that's my main concern. And when you drive up and down on that curve, believe me, if that curb wasn't red, on that street rather, it would be hard to in and out the pass. That's where the problem is. And you can't see around the curve. So the red curve is extremely helpful. That's it. Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Right.
All right, we don't have any more cards. I have a question though for staff. Can we address those now?
See if there's any callers, too.
Yeah, I do have a question, but before we go, are there any callers?
We do not have any callers at this time.
Okay. And I think there is a rebuttal too, in case you wanted to address anything, you can. But before you do, I do have a question for the staff. Couple things that were brought up. First off, in regards to the red curb, that's all done through a different department. Goes through plan checking and all that stuff. So unfortunately, that's not something that we put into consideration whenever we are looking into the plans, but it is something that the city does address and look into. That's the first thing. Second thing, in regards to the replacement of the trees. So I do understand that, the family is trying to preserve as many trees as possible. But in regards to, I think Palma brought up a good point in regards to the fire conditions that have been taking place recently. The replacement trees that they do plan to replace with, are those similar in the sense that if there are fires that were to come up, the difference between the two trees and how basically the fire works with them? If you guys have an answer to that.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would defer to our fire prevention inspector for that type of question.
On the same note, you mentioned the box sizes, but how tall are those trees to help us gauge that?
Yes, it's going to vary depending on availability. I believe a 24-inch box is probably going to be upwards of 12 to 14 feet. A 36-inch box could be anywhere between 18 to 20, perhaps.
And how do you find these as staying established? So as I work up in Duke-Majin watering the little trees that we try to put there, and they unfortunately die, over the hot summers. And I'm just wondering, these replanted trees, do they stay in your experience over the years at the city? Are they staying? Or do you guys track that? Yeah.
That's a great question. We are requiring an automatic irrigation system for mitigation trees.
Okay.
We will be reviewing a proposed irrigation plan as well. And yes, to answer your question, I have seen our mitigation trees do pretty well.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, so just following up on this, I believe that you're requiring that they replace certain number of trees on site. It's not a one-for-one replacement on the site, but there's also this other program that they're required to fund into. Can you describe what that is and how that's, is a mitigation for losing the trees, the mature trees here on the site?
Yes, members of the board and Mr. Chairman, that is correct. So off-site replacement right now, at this time, with the presented plans, we have a total of 15 off-site replacements. So the fees that are paid for that go into a forestry trust fund. That goes for the planting of trees on city property.
So there are no new trees on the site as a result. It's on off-site trees only. Okay.
No, there were some
That's why I thought there were
on
some
site.
on site. But how many on site again?
On site right now, at this time, we're going to be asking for a total of 7 trees.
7. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
I do one more.
No worries.
So in terms of, so there were just so many trees, for instance, in the deck square footage, and were those deemed also not possible if they were? I have seen people who do keep trees with decks, and maybe the deck's permeable or something to make it happen. Did that, when you were looking at the plan, seem unrealistic to keep those trees?
That's a great question. Thank you. So right now in the deck area specifically, we looked at all the trees. We did impose a requirement to reduce the original deck size, which it appears that the developer has complied with in their most recent plan. One of the trees, or what's left of the tree, near the deck, where the deck would be built, is actually a decaying stump. So there's only 2 trees there. One of the trees there will be retained with the modified deck. And as I mentioned, another nearby tree near the deck is actually a decaying stump. And the 3rd tree is proposed to be removed.
And in regards to the trees that are just close to the foundation, once again, I have done some where there's homes where we get close to it, and then there's a protection plan. So I'm assuming, is that something that we could request at least attempting? Have you seen that done where people try to maintain some of these, even though rather than just putting them on the chopping block?
Yes, absolutely. So I think in this case, it's really case by case. In this specific scenario, the proposed removals are I believe it's without thinking outside of those traditional footing construction methods. We are open, of course, to look at subsequent plan submittals. But it would be more exploratory because, for example, in many cases, what happens is if we have trees that are proposed for preservation via those construction methods, it's not always a certain decision that those trees are going to survive.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just to confirm again, there was no callers, correct?
Let me check one more time. I do not have any
Thank you.
colors ready.
Did the applicant want to rebuttal at any? You don't have to.
I just want to address the red curb.
Yeah, you can come right up to the front. Thank you.
We agree, Artem Galesian, we agree with keeping the red curb, so we have no objections. We didn't propose removing it either, yeah.
Oh,
We're okay.
do we have any questions? I have a quick question for you as well. Just in regards to that, retaining some of these trees, proposed to be demolished using a protection plan, did you explore any alternative foundation types for
The
that?
foundation type we're gonna use on this project is most likely gonna be caissons and grade beams.
That's great.
They're not spread footings. So wherever you see the wall, that's where the foundation is.
Okay.
It's not, I can draw something, but we
No,
don't
it's
have that board anymore. You guys used to have a board. But it's not a spread footing, you know? It goes where the
Right.
exterior wall line is, that's, the foundation doesn't go past that point.
Correct.
So if there's a tree there, we can try keeping it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We're going to close it off to the public and go into deliberation now. Did you want to start? Anyone want us to start?
Oh, sure. Well, first, thank you, staff, and thank you for coming as well, and also to the applicant. I want to start by saying I think the design is really beautiful, and it meets our guidelines, in terms of massing, and I appreciate that you didn't do a very large home. It was really thoughtful, and I love the materials. My one challenge with the project is in terms of the site planning, because this is definitely the most number of trees I've ever seen removed on a site, and so that's where I'm struggling. I on one side it's beautiful and appropriate, and the other side is just the number of trees, and so whether it's a condition or look at different slight adjustments to the site planning, I'd love to hear what my fellow review board members think. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for everyone for coming out on such a horrible day and braving the rain. I'm of a similar mind. When I first saw this, and I did a visit to the site and was just blown away at how amazing it was. It is like a grove down there. The question I asked about site planning, I think, was relating to the same thing, is that's where I'm getting hung up, is on the site planning. The design, I think, is very well done. And I really like how you've done it. It is modest in scale. It's well blended. It steps down the topography. It's not a big box that's broken out. That nice L shape that sort of opens the house up to that garden setting. So it will be a lovely home to live in. But it's coming at a cost of multiple 100-year-old trees. So that's the challenge. So for me, it's like, okay, staff has obviously worked on this. The arborist and team have worked on this. There's been some back and forth on it. I really don't have any problems with it from a design, detailing, mass and scale perspective. And if we take it on faith that staff has put in their due diligence, and that, from a site location perspective, they really can't do anything unless, we order a complete redesign, to send it back for redesign and say, the site plan doesn't work, you got to rework that. I'm not sure that it rises to that level, because I think that, the applicant does have the right, the owner does have the right to build something here. It is unfortunate that it is a lovely grove of old oak trees, but, the city has come up with a mitigation plan. They've, the applicant, obviously, and the owner are prepared to abide by that. I think they've done a good faith effort here, so I'm not sure what more, we should do. I mean, I could go along with a redesign if you think that it's feasible, but I think, I know what the applicant is saying, that's, the site slopes very steeply down there. So unless they did something like detaching the garage, and building the house way down below, you know, I'm not sure there's any way to do it that would really be a workable site plan. So,
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Um,
Did you wanna
I would
finish your
say, just in regards to the arborist report, I was noticing, you know, as we were discussing, that there are several trees that are very close to the footprint. I was just wondering if the plan even just stepping back a little bit more from the trees. As he mentioned, the walls go straight up and down just to give them a chance to survive. And then, you know, with an arborist protection plan in place, you know, maybe it might be more painfully,
yeah, they
you know,
did call
dug.
out for
Right,
arborist
protection.
supervision for the
Right,
construction on any of those
Right,
trees, so.
right.
But yeah, I mean, if you want to put in a condition that says, you know, explore pulling the walls a little bit further away from
little
the
further
trees that are
away.
being preserved.
Yeah, I found that there were, I think, maybe 6 trees that weren't in the footprint. They were just out, or, you know, including in decks and things like that, and I would love to see those. You know, that would cut in half the number of trees, approximately. Let's see how many.
I don't think it'll cut it in half.
Well, maybe it's wishful thinking, you know, to save, but I would like to at least attempt to keep. Let's see, yeah, there were, when I went through the report, there were, I think, 4 or 5 trees at least that were outside the perimeter of the home, that were just close by. It was, let's see, it was tree 1. I don't know if we want to get this specific, but tree 5, 9. Are we able to point to them at all?
Yes.
That would help.
One will be this one.
Great. Yeah, 1.
2.
Sorry, yeah, I can show you. Say 1, and then 5 was the other one. See, they're very. I feel like they're 9. And 9 in particular, that was the one that I definitely seems like it can be saved now that they've reduced the deck.
Well, that's the one they are saying
Yeah,
that they're going
right.
to try and save.
Right.
Board Member Locker, so by pulling the walls, you mean not changing the site planning, just moving the location of the walls?
Set back a little bit more.
There are just 2 trees.
Right.
And then with that, you're going to have reduced size of the house as well.
They would have to shift in the other direction, for instance, to accommodate.
This direction, then they cannot preserve this tree, if I'm correct.
And from what I understood, sorry to interrupt,
You know,
but
that's
from what
fine.
I understood is even if they dig, they don't know where the roots are, right, specifically for each one of the trees. So let's say we did set that back a little bit by a foot.
Right.
Like, is that gonna save the tree in that sense, or it's not guaranteed?
Not guaranteed.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as you just mentioned, it's not guaranteed.
Right. And I believe, so just to go through the other ones too, is 25.
25, where is 25 here? This one?
Yeah, and that's
This-
on a deck, for instance.
This one actually is going to be protected. So if I show you.
Oh, sorry, yeah. It says on the report, it says protected, it's proposed for removal.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
I see.
drawings that we have in front of us for the proposed development
Okay.
have been updated, and
I
then
see.
the subject tree is going to be preserved, because
Okay.
the applicant reduced the size of the deck as was required by urban forestry to be
I see,
revisited.
okay, so this list
This is
is
going to
not,
be preserved.
okay. Got it. And then 26 as well.
26,
That's
is this the
also-
one that was not in good health condition? 26?
Is this stump?
26 is a decaying stump.
Gotcha. It's interesting. So this, I think this report that I'm looking at is not accurate then. Yeah, and 27 also, let's see,
27?
yeah.
We can
It's
still
in the
preserve.
deck as well. Yeah,
Do you see possibility of preserving
yeah,
tree number
27 might. be
Members
one.
of the board, Mr. Chairman, number 27 exhibits a significant lean. And with the excavation of the retaining wall as proposed, it is believed that due to the lean being opposite to the excavation, it would create a hazardous condition for the tree to fall over.
I see. Okay.
I can give my deliberation real quick.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
And if you guys want to add anything else, you can. But
Okay.
overall, I support the project. I'm happy to see that, you know, we have a young family that's moving in. And the home, the design and everything, I think you did a great job. Fits perfectly with the neighborhood. I do have those same concerns with the trees, but I think you all are doing your best to at least address these issues that we have. Because, you know, oak trees are very sacred to our city. So as much as we can ensure that those trees aren't getting, you know, cut wherever, I think that's the direction that we need to take it. Is there anything else that you all want to add?
Well, I think it's up to you to decide if you want to craft a motion and or an additional
Right.
condition here.
I do think we need an additional condition. I would like to see more trees preserved. That one tree, you know, that we mentioned for sure. It does have a tilt, but I think an effort to try would be worthwhile. And I'd also, I feel like you did mention a good point about shifting the plan. I feel like there could be other options, but yeah, I'm struggling with this. Chris, do you have Board Member Welsh, sorry.
I mean, I guess you could craft a condition that said, you know, staff to work with the applicant to restudy precise wall locations, to attempt to save, you know, a few more trees.
Right.
But I'm not sure that we can go much further. I don't think we can prescribe exactly how many trees that we need to be preserved. And I don't even think it needs to be, we can specify that it must happen.
Yep.
Because there's just a lot of factors that are out of our control.
I think that that's a good condition in the sense where, one, there's a lot of, you know, I think trees here that they're saying that shouldn't be there or should be here and all that stuff. So if we set those conditions that you just stated, at least they can go back and see if there are those better options. And you guys could work closely together to kind of like figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say work I agree to restudy the plan.
Does that make sense, Ms. Babani?
Yeah, to restudy to reduce the number of trees being removed.
I think if you also mentioned which wall, let's say the east wall at the upper floor,
Okay.
or the entire building wall on the east side of the house and also on the south side. If I mention the direction, would be more clear.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see. But I think if they could reduce in any way possible.
Generally.
Any way, okay.
Honestly, they could recite this so that there are, no trees removed. I think that is a higher priority to us than, like you were saying, than a lot of other things. And I do think that this designer did a lovely job, so I trust in that their, reconfiguration is going to be thoughtful. But I think that, restudying the plan to.
As a condition
As a
of
condition,
approval,
yes,
not to redesign.
yeah.
Okay, I have that
That
condition.
would be
noted.
my.
Yeah, no redesign, just approve with an additional condition.
And the existing
Existing
conditions that had
conditions.
already
To
been
reduce
put in.
the, number of trees being removed.
Okay, I'll have that condition added to study the location of the walls of this proposed development in order to preserve more protected trees on the site.
Correct.
If possible.
Yeah.
If possible.
Okay, With
would-
that condition.
I would rather say just period without the if possible, because I think at least one I can see for sure.
if you want-
Two, it would be better. Three,
Make a
you
motion
know.
with that, I would remove
Yeah.
the if possible.
What's that?
I'd remove the if
Thank
possible.
you. Yeah, that would be, because definitely we want to see a reduction, or I do, but I think.
I see
yeah.
your points.
Yeah.
I will work with the designer to redesign that portion in order to preserve more trees as much as possible.
Right.
Of course, we work with urban forestry as
Right,
well.
Right.
I assure you that's gonna happen. So-
Right, and even if something's in a canopy, just to qualify that further, to still try to preserve the tree, even, there might be a chance that the tree is lost, but I think the effort to try, I've seen trees survive right, closer to a home, so I think it's worth that effort to try to save as many as possible, even if it's within the canopy. So,
Sure.
thank you.
Do we have a motion for this?
I motion
Sure.
to approve with that condition, and with the other conditions that
Other
you
conditions,
had in the report. Thank you.
I'll second it.
Okay, that was a motion by Board Member Lockroff and a second by Board Member Welch to approve with conditions, the ones in the report plus the new one. Board Member Lockroff,
Yes.
Board Member Welch,
Yes.
Chair Kaskanian.
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next case is at 906 White Haven Terrace, and Eric G. will be presenting that as case planner, so we're gonna be shifting.
Sorry, can we, since we're still in a meeting, can we please lower the voices?
Use the gavel.
Sorry, everyone, we're still in a meeting, so please, can you guys please keep it low?
Thank you.
We're ready?
Thank you, Chair and members of the board. This is Planning Associate Eric G. presenting for case number PDR-004219-2024. The subject property is located in the Greenbrier neighborhood in the R1R zone, District Area 3. The subject property is a single-story, single-family residence that is at 1,938 square feet. The project is proposing to add 521 square feet in the first level and then 1,344 square feet on the second story, along with a design change. The neighborhood is located along the White Haven Terrace that consists of 9 properties, and 2 properties across the street along the Old Phillips Road. The subject site is, and the neighborhood consists of a cul-de-sac that is terraced and sits at a higher elevation than the property on the south. So from here, we can see a little bit better of the site condition, how the site slopes up in a higher elevation than the rear abutting property. For the neighborhood context, there are 3 two-story properties in White Haven Terrace, 2 two-story properties on the Old Phillips Road, and 6 one-story residences. Here we see the rendering of the proposed design viewed from the street. The first level footprint is to remain, which we'll see better in the site plan here. So here we see the footprint. From the existing, we'll have the addition on the first level at the west elevation and the front north elevation, or the north of the site. We have also the new landscape changes, which includes configuration of new walkways, pools, and the extension of the deck in the rear, about 6 feet extension. Here is the existing floor plan and the existing roof plan. And then highlighted here in the purple is the addition areas. So on the right is the second story volume. It is set back from the front and the west side. It consists of a balcony at the rear that looks out to the west and the rear south. Here we see the existing elevation and then the proposed elevation. Staff believes that the addition of the second story volume does create a monumental entry and has some large scaling issues. So that would be a condition that we would like to recommend to reduce the scaling and the monumental entry. Here we see the site section shown in the bottom area to see how the deck extension affects the privacy of the rear, the neighbors at the rear. We can kind of see configuration of conceptual of how the proposed project will look on the site here. From the existing rear patio, we can see how the current views are towards the neighbors. And then here's at the front, currently with the story poles to show the footprint of the outline of the massing compared with the rendering at the next to it. And then from the sides and the rear. The addition consists of facade change and the design change, consisting of high quality materials such as limestones and board and batten. So staff recommends approval with the conditions to revise the design of the second story volume to be more proportional and reduce the monumental entry. And that also would work with revising the design to reduce the variation of the roof forms to be more proportional with the home. That concludes staff presentation. Staff has also received 4 public comments from the neighbors, which forwarded to the board members present tonight. And the concerns included impacts to the privacy and concerns of the massing. Staff is available to answer any questions, and the property owners and their representative also available. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Nope.
I just have one. Could you go back to the image that shows the view of the current view? Oh, that was just helpful. I didn't see that before. So that's existing, obviously, of the neighbor. Okay, thank you. Do you have any other questions?
Nope. Okay. All right, so no questions for staff. We'll open it up to the public. Harry Agopian? If you could please just state your name.
Harry Agopian, architect.
Thank you.
First off, I want to thank you guys for taking the time to hear us out. And I want to thank Eric and the diligent planning staff that have helped us get to this point. My first impression as I approached the site was how the garage played such a predominant role in your initial perception, while the entrance was tucked away in a dark, kind of dingy, uninviting recess of the house. The original design intent would want to celebrate the entrance and refocus the emphasis that this home was for living and not for storing vehicles. From that, we began with the idea that we would not alter the footprint of the home too greatly to not impact the site. There were some options in the earlier iterations that showed kind of extruding volumes, but we retracted that and we tried to stay within the building envelope and building footprint. Again, that had to do a lot with the privacy as well, to preserve the existing privacy as much as we can with a second-story addition. We limited the amount of fenestration on the east and west sides for the privacy concerns of the neighbors. The only exception to that is on the west side, but on the west side, the next-door neighbor is at a higher grade, so we're actually looking up to that building. We extended the deck out to increase the usable space, no lie, and to limit views from the second floor. So the exposures that you're seeing would remain the same. As the views would not change immensely. Site-wise, the home responds to its environment in much the same way it did before. The programmatic elements remain the same. The public elements remain the same. The private program remains the same. In other words, where the living room currently is stays. Where the dining room currently is stays. Massing-wise, I know this has been kind of an area of consternation between us and the planning department and some of the community members. But we did our best effort to push the second-story mass as far back from the setbacks as possible. On the nearest corner from the front of the street, we have 30'6". On the furthest end, we have 57'6". Again, kind of staying within the existing envelope of the existing footprint. We kept the interior spaces modest. The double plate, we have an 8 to 9 foot double plate height between the two stories. We also kept our roof pitches very shallow at 3 to 12, again, to kind of remediate that massing issue. The one area where we have the entrance, we are taking a different approach. We're actually trying to celebrate the entrance. We're trying to make something evocative. So there were two kind of functions to that. One was just the function of the stairs being there, and if I did anything right on this project, is to position the stairs there. The stairs, I didn't want it compromising the view in the back. It couldn't go to the left because the garage was there. It couldn't go to the right because the living room was there. So the main entrance you see being that size, part of it is the function of the stair. The second part, obviously, is the aesthetic aspect of wanting to glorify the entrance. We tried to balance, by glorifying the entrance, yes, so we tried to balance it out between the entry and the garage, again, to kind of diminish the role of the garage. But we felt like the entry needed transitional volumes to work your way up to the second story volume. So as you can see, there's a play of form or a play of mass where the lowest one is the entry, the secondary one houses the large open window for the stairs, and the third one becomes kind of a transitional volume between those two and the second story mass. In the rear, we also tried to break up the volumes as much as possible, introducing some outdoor spaces. California, well, not today, but mostly is a sunny city, state, and so we want to celebrate that as much as we can by creating outdoor spaces. Design and detail, we've kind of began with like the farmhouse appeal, but we've shifted away from that. I think now it's a little bit more eclectic. It's a little bit more of a transitional contemporary home, I would say. We maintained as much of the transparency in the rear as possible to kind of soak in as much of the $1 million view as we can. We used various types of materials, again, to break up the uniformity of the house, including board and batten, stone, and stucco. We try to stay true to the nature of the materials, having them be as natural as possible, not bringing in any fake or synthetic materials. And finally, I wanted to mention the use of stone at the entrance. Again, this idea of this celebratory entrance was there to really ground the entrance, give it a sense of permanence and timelessness. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Did we have any questions? Did we have any questions for the architect?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Same.
Did you have?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right, we have Mike and Talin Mazmanyan, the owners. If you all want to come up together, separate, doesn't matter. And if you guys could please just state your name to the mic. Thank you.
Good evening, board members and chairperson. I'm Talene, and this is my husband.
Michael Mazmanian.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. I appreciate you hearing us out. We've been living at 906 White Haven for over 6 years now, moved in kind of as is, and decided to grow our home just as our family is growing as well. I understand that privacy is a concern, but we have a little girl at home, and we prioritize privacy more than ever for us and for those around us too. So I'm hoping with your blessing, we can build our forever home and our dream home so our kids can enjoy the fruits of our labor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we got Martin Galstian. If you could please state your name.
Yes. Hi, my name is Martin Galstian, and greetings, Mr. Chairman and Sir and Madam of the Design Review Board. Thank you for the opportunity for coming up and speak. I've lived in this neighborhood for over 36 years. I currently reside at 900 White Haven Terrace. We also spend a lot of time and money renovating our home, so I know, the task that it takes. But we did so with a modest addition and also taking into account the privacy of our neighborhood as well. This project, it definitely aims to mega size the home by almost doubling the square footage. If you look at this stuff, it's a pretty heavy home, for the lot size there. It's not only aesthetically too large for the existing structure itself, but I believe for the lot size as well. Adding second story to a home on a view side of a slope street is not an easy task, that's for sure. Even on the same side of the street, I think a few homes have definitely tried and unsuccessfully been able to do so. Even the previous owner of this property actually had purchased the property and sold it within 2 months because they weren't able to make the home they wanted to by adding a second story. Another example, 914 White Haven Terrace, they purchased that home in 2020 and had to sell in 2021, again, because they couldn't add that second story there as well. And in fact, the current homeowner himself wasn't able to add a second story, so they just did like a cosmetic facelift, down the street there. Such a large house, on this lot size, I've kind of looked around the neighborhood. I haven't seen anything like it. Having a floor to area ratio of 32% with similar characteristics, it's definitely not been successful in those areas. So, I respectfully ask you, what's the project, what's the exception here? That's my concern. Every homeowner has a right to build or renovate their home to their liking. I'm not opposed to that. But also every homeowner has a right to enjoy their home without having their privacy violated. That's my biggest concern here. The proposed project in question involves the expansion of the owner's residence, which if approved, I would believe it would infringe upon the privacy of the neighboring property owners, including myself. I'm the one on that west side of the home. Again, while I do not object to renovating the existing home, I strongly ask the staff to reconsider having a second story added to that home. Again, I thank you for your time. I appreciate your consideration and allowing me to come up here and speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we got Viken Tovmasyan.
Hi, my name is Viken Tovmasyan. I'm here on behalf of my son and my daughter-in-law. They couldn't come here, but if it's okay for you, they can call. She can call right now. Is it okay?
You can call, yeah. The number.
Yeah, she has it, yeah.
Yeah, you can call. Are you,
Well, they should call in.
No, you can't call right there.
Oh, she's calling, yeah, of course. I'm
Okay,
texting her to
once
call.
we receive the call, then
Yeah.
we will process it accordingly.
She's calling you.
Yeah, they could speak. You just need to call in. Are you not going to speak?
No.
Okay. Okay, next we have Mike Mikhailian. Susan? You guys want to come together? That's fine.
We should have the names in both on the speaker cards.
Okay, so I need a new speaker card then, or you could just add to one of these existing ones that you guys came together.
So we live at 849 Moorside Drive, which is behind this house. We appreciate the opportunity to speak here today regarding our strong opposition to our neighbor's proposed second-story addition, which includes balconies, a deck, an extension of the deck, balconies, and a second story. The proposed construction presents significant concerns, particularly regarding privacy, property boundaries, and tree ownership. So one of my primary concerns is the severe loss of privacy that this addition will impose on my family and me. The new second-story windows, balconies, and deck will provide direct, unobstructed views into multiple areas of my home, including our bedroom, bathroom, kitchen, living room, family room, the backyard, which is currently private and secure, a secure area for our family. With this addition, everyday activities inside my home, whether it's in the kitchen, living room, or even personal spaces like my bedroom, bathroom, will be exposed to my neighbor's direct view. This is a major intrusion into my family's privacy and will significantly impact our sense of security and comfort in our own home. And also in reviewing with the submitted plans, I've identified discrepancies in the property lines. So it's hard to tell because they're showing that the trees are on their side, but there's 2 pine trees that are actually on our side of the property. There should be. And so this raises serious legal and boundary concerns that must be addressed and corrected. Additionally, the applicant's claiming those 2 trees are his, but they're in fact on our property. These trees have been long maintained by us, and any construction plans should not include or impact those trees. Given these serious concerns, I respectfully urge the board to reject this proposal. I trust the board will carefully consider these valid concerns in making a fair and responsible decision that respects my rights as a homeowner. Thanks for your time, and I don't know if you received the photos that I emailed from our view of our yard. So you could see in those photos that what they're saying is not true. It's going to be heavily impacted, the line of view. So I don't know if you want to go further into it.
This proposal doesn't really show the line of sight that increases from the second story. If you go back a couple of slides where it showed.
Can we put the pictures I submitted from our yard? Because you could actually
I don't know if we
see
have those.
Oh,
Yeah.
I sent an email
Yeah,
with the
we have the
photos.
email, but we don't have it there
Oh,
right now.
okay. Because that will definitely, it would show how much it's going to be of an impact for us from our yard.
So the line of sight coming down, if you increase that, those windows are gonna be about, 10 to 12, 13 feet off the ground.
Right, and you
So
could
that-
directly
So
see.
right now this is
Oh,
looking
there.
from our backyard, you can't see the house. So you can imagine, you can see the outline of the house.
Right,
where
at the
those,
top.
Stringers are lined up. You can see the roof line, now you can imagine
The balconies and the
a
windows.
second story up there, 10 to 12 feet, 13 feet off the ground with all those windows. Basically, we've just lost all of our privacy in every single room in the house.
Yeah, so those are our concerns, is definitely the privacy issue with the deck and the balcony and the large windows facing our rooms and our house. So it is going to be a major impact when they said it's not. But also there's some discrepancies in this the staff review report. Some of the areas where it says that, like, for example, the scale and portion, the scale is too big, not just the front, because they're actually talking about the front facade of the building when it's actually the whole building. The back part is definitely large. The landscape design, it's pretty much impossible to plant anything there that's going to give us privacy. Because that would mean, you can't even plant anything that tall enough. And if you did, that's going to completely cover up their whole window from the second floor. So and I'm sure they want the review. And then another issue was.
Oh, sorry, the time is up.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay,
If
that's
you wanted
fine.
to finish a thought real quick or a sentence.
No, it's just there's some, if you guys reviewed the design reports, the staff report, so there's some issues in that with the privacy as well, where it said that there's no impact on our privacy when there actually is. That's
Thank
pretty
you.
much it.
Thank you so much for your time. Okay, I have Argine Derharatunyan.
Hello, good evening, Design Review Board members and Mr. Chair. My name is Argine Derhartunian, and I'm a Glendale resident for over 38 years and the homeowner of 900 White Haven Terrace. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my concerns regarding the proposed project. I kindly ask you to give me 5 minutes to speak. White Haven Terrace is located.
Right. We have, how much, what's the time on? 3 minutes.
My husband,
Sorry, there's
No
no
cross-communication,
yeah.
please.
We will allow 5 minutes.
thank you,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. White Haven Terrace is a sloped street with primarily one-story tract homes that were built from 1971 to 1974. Driving up White Haven on the left side, where the proposed residence is located, you will only find one-story homes situated on small lots. Additionally, the form and profile of these homes follow the topography of the sloped hillside. Mr. G, could you please pull up the panoramic view? Thank you. These homes were built not to intrude on the adjacent neighbor and the residents below on Moorside. This proposed resident fails to meet Glendale Design Review standards since the form and profile do not follow the topography. The east side of the home sits higher than the west side. Most importantly, the proposed second-story addition will be encroaching on our privacy and will cause a nuisance to the use and enjoyment of our property. The large second-story balcony will overlook our dining room, kitchen, breakfast area, and our backyard, where our 3 young boys spend a fair amount of time playing and swimming. Mr. G, could you please pull up those photos? Most important, the second-story addition will also violate the privacy of the homeowners residing below on Moorside. The windows and balcony will look directly into their windows and backyard. The second-story addition will violate the privacy of several surrounding neighbors and will interfere with the use of their homes, which will ultimately cause disharmony among the neighborhood. We strongly believe that the proposed plans fail to meet the Glendale Design Review standards for privacy and therefore oppose the second-story addition. If the second-story addition is approved, it will set the precedence for second-story additions on White Haven Terrace and possibly neighboring streets with similar topography. I would also like to bring to your attention that 1060 and 1066 Old Phillips should not be included in the neighborhood survey. These properties are not within 300 linear feet. This was confirmed with the Public Works Engineering Department. Mr. G, could you? Perfect, thank you. Given the provided information, the neighborhood comprises of 7 one-story homes and 3 two-story homes. One of these two-story homes is a corner lot, 1071 Old Phillips, and the other is my home, which is a cul-de-sac lot that was originally built as a two-story home. The only other two-story home is 915 White Haven, across the street from the proposed residence. All the homes on the proposed residence side are one story. I would like to highlight that our home is situated at the end of the cul-de-sac that borders a hillside. Consequently, it should not be considered a comparable home due to the significant difference in lot size and location. Furthermore, the proposed second-story addition does not align with its surroundings or the prevailing one-story pattern on the street. The modern farmhouse design does not harmonize with the existing home and fails to integrate with the surrounding context and therefore does not meet Glendale design standards. Lastly, the proposed residence mass and scale are disproportionate to the lot size. The house is monumental and is not congruent with the rest of the neighborhood. Not to mention that the roof form is extremely busy and unsightly with 9 different peaks. Mr. G, can we go to the next slide? Thank you. The roof. Once again, the architectural scale and proportions do not meet Glendale design standards. In conclusion, everyone has the right to construct their dream home. However, it should not come at the expense of violating your neighbor's privacy. This is not a modest remodel, rather a new construction of a home. It appears the homeowner is trying to mega-size his home and views at the expense of his neighbor's privacy. I respectfully request that the Design Review Board and the staff reconsiders the second story and the architectural design. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you. All right, we have rebuttal now. Sorry, it's a rebuttal. Oh, callers, yes, go ahead.
We have 3 callers on the line.
Okay.
Okay, Susie Tovamasian? Susie? Susie? All right, I'll try one more time. Susie, you're on the line, you're on the air with Design Review Board. Okay, I'm going to put her on hold.
Yeah, let's go next one.
Vartan? Vartan? You're on the air with the Design Review Board. Vartan? I'm going to go to the next one. Ani Gregorian?
Hello?
Yes, Ani, you're live with the Design Review Board. Can you please state your name for the
Hello?
record? And you have 3 minutes.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear us,
Hello?
Ani? We can hear you.
Hello?
Ani, we can hear you.
Hello?
Let's try the next one, maybe.
By the way, sorry, Susie said she was on the line, she couldn't hear anything.
Okay.
Yeah, well, maybe we have
Let me
Hello?
check with our techs and see what's the issue. Let's go back to Susie and see. Hold on, Ani. Susie?
Hello?
Susie, can you hear us? Okay, we'll keep her on hold.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Nika over in the hearing room. We're having some issues with the callers. They cannot hear. Okay. Well, I don't know what to do at this point. No, everybody's gone.
So we're going to take a quick recess so we could figure out what the technical difficulties are.
Stay on, so I'm doing it right now. Susan? Susie's there, but she's not answering, so she can't hear us. Let me try the other one. Vartan? 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 You want to look over my shoulder? Ani? No. Ani? 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 No.
Hello? Hello? Hi, members of the board, Mr. Chairman, I can't hear you guys, so I'm going to do my best here. I don't even know if you can hear me, but I hope you can. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. My name is Susie Kovmasian, and I own the home on 855 Moorside Drive, which is directly below 906 White Haven. I'm calling in today because I am very concerned about the extension, the deck extension, as well as the addition of the second story and how it's going to impact my privacy and my children's privacy.
We're live on the air. Thank you. We're having some technical difficulties, but we're going to get through this. So let's move on to the first caller that we had was Susie Tomasian. And Eric G., do you, since he's the case planner, we'll have Eric articulate her comments. Go ahead.
Okay, so the email that we received from Susie. Hello, my name is Susie Tomasian. I own the property on 855 Moorside Drive in Glendale. I was recently notified of a proposed remodel plan of my neighbor's property at 906 White Haven Terrace. This house is located directly above my property, and I am very concerned about their plans to not only add a second story to their home, but also a 6-foot deck extension. Their backyard currently faces directly into my backyard. As it is, I have a limited privacy in my backyard. With this extension, in addition to the second story, I will have virtually no privacy in my backyard in addition to the family room and kitchen, which is directly facing the neighbor's backyard. I have 3 young children, so we spend a lot of time in our backyard and pool. With this extension and remodel, I will feel incredibly uncomfortable to be using our pool and even our family living room due to how much closer the neighbor's visibility will be of my property and personal space. I respect residents, homeowners looking to build and beautify Glendale, but not at the expense of our privacy. Although I'm not sure either my husband or I can make it to the hearing tonight due to work, as they are physicians on call at the hospital and child care, I hope that you will take my concerns and considerations into approving this plan. Thank you.
Move on to the next one, and I'm going to try just in case if it works. Vartan? No. Okay, so let me check with our staff. And anybody else sent you any emails yet? Okay, let's see if we could get Barton.
Good evening. I know we're having a bit of technical difficulties. Just want to thank you all for giving me this opportunity. I live on Moorside Drive, and I think it's been made very clear with regards to our concerns with privacy and the precedence that this size of a building will place on that neighborhood, right? There is going to be views of my backyard and my bedrooms and potentially my bathroom from this property. And with the extension of the decks coming out 6 foot, my concern is parties where people are on the deck, just overall privacy concerns. So I would appreciate the board addressing our privacy concerns and also not setting a precedence where we start building mansions right around that area. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Barton? Okay, and the next caller, we'll try Ani. Ani? Okay, let's get her on. Keep her on here.
Email was sent? Someone else sent a email?
I haven't received it yet.
Okay. Is it that caller that was supposed to talk right now? Or is it another one? Did that email come in yet?
From Honey? Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
I'm just going to assume you guys can hear me. I'm running late for an appointment. I didn't think there'd be technical difficulties. My name is Ani Gregorian. I live on the Moore side of the properties. The development is, just like everyone mentioned, encroaching onto privacy of the neighboring homes. Frankly, the size, proportion, and architecture does not relate to the surrounding or predominant patterns on the street. It just, hello?
We can hear you.
Okay. Let me move that one over. Yeah, I'll just be very brief and say that it's obnoxiously huge for the size lot that it is, and the second story is just going to destroy any privacy we have on our side. Thank you so much for your time. I have to run. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, those were the 3 callers.
And then we had an email.
Yes, we received.
Okay. Do you want to?
Okay, so the email was received from the resident at 1113 Kildonan Drive. Hello, my name is
Aramais?
and I have been residing at 1113 Kildonan Drive for the past 37 years. I originally built this house on the lot, and I would like to voice my concern regarding the project located at 906 White Haven Terrace. First off, the mass and scale of this property are not congruent with the surrounding homes located in the street. This is not a modest addition. The addition proposed is too large and overshadows the rest of the homes located around it. All the homes adjacent tend to be single-story and are located on generally smaller lot sizes. In addition, the roofline is extremely busy and does not follow the natural topography of the slope of the street coming down from the west to east. As you drive down White Haven Terrace, Old Phillips Road, and even Kildonan Drive, the highest point of the home is always towards the highest point of the street and continues to slope downward. One of the beautiful things about our hillside neighborhood is that there is a sense of tranquility and proportionality as you drive through the streets because the homes are scaled in proportion to their location and the lot size. If approved, 906 White Haven will disrupt that. I strongly oppose the addition of a second story and recommend a single-story redesign of the project to veer away from the modern farmhouse theme. I have yet to come across a modern farmhouse design in this area. The design is better suited for Encino and Studio City. Please present my email to the Design Review Board at the hearing. Thank you.
Callers, any other callers, Milka? Thank you. And thank you, Milka, for doing all of that. Appreciate it. We have rebuttal. Is it 2 or 3 minutes to rebuttal, Milka?
It would be 3 minutes.
Sorry, Chair, we have one more caller.
Okay, one more caller.
Hello, James? Hello?
Hi, am I on?
Yes. Can you hear us?
Hi, my name is James Lacopian. I'm a resident in the area. I'm calling in support of this current project. While some people have made some concerns about privacy issues, I don't believe that's too much of a concern. There's a bunch of houses on that street that look into the backyards and adjacent properties. There are ways to mitigate privacy issues such as planting trees, or the neighbors can put up blinds or shades. In addition, I don't believe that the house is out of character for the area. There are numerous houses in the area, specifically on White Haven that are over 3,000 square feet, that are two-story as well. And I think that ultimately the house would add a lot of character to the area and ultimately help us as neighbors raising our property values and making the neighborhood a nicer place to live. Thank you for your time.
James?
I don't know who the caller was. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. We cannot have the cross communication. We have the
Yes.
name. We will have to follow up with our staff because obviously we're doing things a little different. So we heard the caller, we got the name, we have a phone number, we can get their address.
Sounds good. Thank you. Milka, is there any more callers?
As of right now, she's not noticing me that we have callers.
Okay, so we're closing the calls. We have rebuttal now from the architect. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
No relation to James, by the way. I have no idea what that was. We have a survey to alleviate some of the concerns about where the trees are planted and where the pine trees are. It's all within our it's all within our right. In terms of lot coverage and FAR, we are within the zoning parameters. We're 32% out of the 40%, so we're not even edging to the closeness as some people have claimed about the size of the house being too large. About the deck, if can we go, Eric, to the A101 with the deck section? We believe fundamentally no views really change on this property. We were actually we purposefully done that. And you can see I took a sight line in this site section, I took a sight line, and from where the edge of the deck is currently, there's no greater exposure than from what the existing conditions shows. And the owner has also agreed to plant privacy hedging to alleviate some of the discomfort of the neighbors. So again, no fundamental changes to the privacy on that end. We feel that we're still within the residential scale. If you look at the sections, again, we are between 8 to 9 feet in ceiling height. That is, well, we don't have any sort of grandiose spaces that some have claimed. We do have some enlarged spaces in the form of cathedral ceilings, and obviously our foyer is a little bit large. But again, we can work with the planner to remediate some of that.
You have 1 more minute.
Yeah. One last thing I want to say is we feel like we took the more challenging route to alleviate some of the privacy concerns. The second story could have easily cantilevered out to actually make it easier for us to build new construction. However, we took the challenging route of staying on top of the existing footprint, making it even harder for us to build the house because it becomes a more surgical procedure with operating with a lot of unknowns. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, we have a question. You have a question.
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I do have a question. Obviously, there are privacy concerns. Are there, having digested them a little bit, are there any other ways that you've thought to mitigate those concerns?
Right now, it's going to be with the use of planting. I'm going to have my landscape architect look at remediating. You look at using proper planting, look at planting that can grow a certain height without blocking the owner's view, but at the same time providing the privacy that the other neighbors are asking for. Along the west end, it's the same kind of remediation. We are well within the planning parameters, so we feel like there's not much more we can do besides at the cost of square footage at this point. Again, we can maybe look at the roof lines as well and maybe kind of sink the building down a little bit lower, but beyond that, we don't feel that there's any new exposures. That's the kind of key word here. All the existing deck, you can stand there and you can still see their backyards, so nothing really changes, and it seems a little bit more vindictive from the community than anything else at this point.
Sorry. No, please, no bursting out loud. Not okay.
I was going to say, did you explore an option of moving that second floor a little bit closer to the street to give a little, or would you consider something like that?
If we, the problem with this kind of what I talk about surgical procedure, there is a very sensitive code at play here. If we go beyond a certain percentage of removing existing, we lose the renovation status. So, like I said, where it's placed, and again, the relationship between first floor and second floor, we tried. We even had one of the first iterations, we had one of the volumes of the second floor kind of come out some more, and the owner kind of pulled me back and said, hey, I don't want to be looking in anybody's backyard. I don't want them looking at mine. Let's pull it back as far as we can from the setbacks. Where it's nestled is as far as it can be from the rear setback, and it's as far as it can be from the front setback.
Because it doesn't align with walls, for instance.
It doesn't align with walls. It will offend the zoning code when it relates to the 50% roof demolition. So again, programmatically, it doesn't align. Plus, fire, you don't really want to put program over a garage either, because you have a fire concern. That's exhaust from vehicles and things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you look at having the second floor massing more towards the right side of the house as opposed to the left side? Because as was pointed out by some of the speakers, that it doesn't exactly line up with the topography. The topography tends to slope.
Yeah, so again, it was a programmatic function. If we start moving to the left side of, the right side of the house, it's going to now be over public spaces. And so now you have a disconnect between right now, all the private spaces are above private spaces. If you make the shift that you're talking about, you now have private spaces over public spaces. Everything kind of works well because you've now sequestered the private spaces to kind of its own domain. So whatever happens, whatever the family engages in private events and things like that, that delineation is very clear. The other reason is because they wanted to have kind of larger ceiling spaces. So we started to do some cathedral ceilings in the living and dining, in the living and the dining rooms. If we move the second story program over those spaces, it's going to immediately, without compromising that double stud height, it will compromise that larger open space that they have. That's the only areas that they actually do have kind of a high ceiling. And part of the high ceiling is also, it can help in views and just make the space feel more expanded. And part of that is also to, part of the result of that was keeping the footprint where it is. I told them, look, the space will feel larger if you have a cathedral ceiling. You don't necessarily have to move your perimeter wall out for that to happen. And if you look at the plans again, there's only a few spots we're actually adding that addition.
Thank you. Any other questions?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much. We are going to close the public hearing. Deliberation. Does anyone want to start? Board Member Welsh.
Okay. So first of all, I'd like to address a couple of general comments for the benefit of callers and the members of the public. Doing a second floor addition, there's no such thing as setting a precedent per se. People are allowed by right to add a second floor addition. Our job here is to try to make sure that when people are doing that, especially in a predominantly single-story location, that it's done carefully, that it's done with consideration of the neighborhood and with the goal towards blending it into the scale, generally speaking, of the neighborhood. What our goal is here is, as many of the speakers have said, about mass and scale, the site planning, and the design and the detailing. So I appreciate very much several of the callers who have been very articulate in laying out some of these points, because they are in line with many of the thoughts that I had been thinking about, that it's really not stepping with the topography of the site, that it is a little bit out of mass. I am not terribly concerned about the design of the entryway. I'm not sure that I find it really monumental, but the roof forms are quite busy. So I think that there's work that could be done there. So I think one of my biggest issues also was the extent to which the second floor addition pushes actually beyond the edge of the existing house and cantilevers out. That to me is not only violating the design guidelines, it's just an excessive amount of additional massing on that second floor, especially impacting the homes that will be looking at this from below. So I am definitely of the mind that some of that, at very least, needs to be peeled back. I would say the same thing about the balconies. I'm not sure that it is necessary to have second floor balconies. There's a perfectly wonderful view at the ground level. You can have good views from the second floor, but that doesn't mean you have to have a balcony, because I think balconies on upper floors are going to be more impactful. Right now, there's already a pool deck there, so a small expansion of the pool deck I don't think is that big of a change from the current conditions, but a second floor balcony is a big change from the current conditions, and so I'm not so much in favor of allowing a second floor balcony that has such big impacts on the privacy of neighboring properties. Scale-wise, I think that it is quite large. It's doubling the size of the home, and I'm not sure that it necessarily needs to be quite that big of a jump, because as people have pointed out, it does push the FAR quite a bit beyond what is the average in the neighborhood. well beyond the largest home in the neighborhood. It is not quite the largest home in the neighborhood, but it's close. So I'd be proposing that it be shrunk down a little bit, and maybe goes in line with peeling back that second floor in the master bedroom, master bathroom area, and just pulling that back a little bit. I think that would have some reduction in square footage that would get it maybe a little bit closer in line with the average, or at least the highest FAR that exists in the neighborhood. But beyond that, I do think that, we can move it forward with some additional conditions. Overall, the design, the style, the architecture of it, people are allowed to bring individual styles at play. There's no defined, single, uniform design style in the neighborhood, and so we can't really impose any kind of conditions on the design itself. People are allowed to do that in a neighborhood where there's lots of different varieties of home styles. So from that perspective, I think that, they should be entitled to come up with a design that works within them. And if it's well done and it's true to itself, it makes sense, it's holistic and, well balanced, we can be supportive of that. So those are my thoughts on the project.
Thank you. Thank you, board member. Thank you. Well articulated. I think that I really do appreciate all the public comments and the comments from the architect and staff for kind of this broader view of the project. I concur with a lot of what Board Member Welch said. I think that this project, while we don't oppose second-story additions, needs several conditions. I think multiple conditions to be able to move forward. I think that I agree with the removal of the deck. I think that's a good compromise, and also reduction of the massing on the second floor, in particular. To bring it closer to the street side. I know that the architect articulated that it can't go much further, but if they reduce the massing, they could bring it further in for added privacy. I think, it is monumental, and I think the challenge I have with just conditioning it is there are so many roof lines. I think there needs to be less roof lines. I think modern design, as you said, and this modern ranch style is fine. I think that it's okay, but I do think that it needs to be less busy. And so I think a reduction in the roofs, or restudying the roofs, needs to be a condition. So that it's more thoughtful about the massing and topography too. So even just the roof forms could assist in giving the illusion of moving with the slope a little bit more. And then let's see, what other conditions was I thinking of? So restudying to reducing massing. Let's see. And do, as a part of that, I said restudy so that it follows the topography. Reducing the number of pitches, and as I mentioned, I would say the removal of the decks and balconies. I think that's it. I think that in terms of the door, it doesn't really follow the guidelines, in terms of, we have these kind of dual guidelines where you need to see your way to the door, but it is pretty monumental. I think that's up for discussion. I think maybe I think the door is quite, it adds to the monumentality to me. So I would like to see it reduced somewhat in that study. Trying to think of anything else. I do appreciate the designer's intent to make the entrance more of an interest than the garage, though. So I do appreciate that element of it, but it needs work. I think those are the conditions I would propose, but I would love to hear your thoughts as well.
Thank you. Yes, thank you everyone for your feedback. Appreciate both sides and hearing from both y'all and the callers. Overall, I am in support of adding second story, just as our board member had said. Everyone has a right to build. There's no guidelines per se that say you can't do it, but there are ways that we can mitigate it so that, we have addressing your privacy concerns. Or additional things as well. I am in agreement in restudying the roof line. I think there is like a lot going on over there. And even the doorway, I do think it's a little bit monumental. So I do think that there a condition to restudy that as well. Also, privacy hedges, looking into adding that as well. I know that was something that is of concern for the residents, and I know that the owners did agree that they would do that as well, but I think it's important for us to include that as well as a condition. But in overall, I am in support of building the home so that you all could, expand, grow your family. But I do agree with the concerns that the residents also did bring up too that we need to address, and that's why a board like this exists. So, we address both sides. So there aren't those massive mansions, homes being built, or anything that's kind of like outside of the design guidelines. So overall, I'm in support with the conditions that you had also stated, and I don't know if there's anything else that you guys want to address.
Okay, so just to be clear, we're okay to move it forward with approval with conditions. We're not, because I thought I heard you might saying return for
I was a little bit
redesign.
on the fence, but I think that if we can condition this enough, I think we can get there. The roof line is the one thing that concerned me, because once you say restudy the roof line, it could, as long as it does follow the topography and it doesn't go any higher than it is now, and that the massing, visual massing is reduced and visual busyness is simplified. I think that if they could work with staff to achieve that.
So to craft a condition, so restudy the second floor massing. I mean, it kind of, maybe you can edit the existing one that talks about it, or maybe this is an additional condition, but restudy the second floor massing so that it is more in keeping with the design guidelines, following the topography, not cantilevering out past the existing footprint of the house, potentially bringing it closer to the streets, but not too much, obviously.
And the balcony also.
That would be, I think that we should make that a second condition, that there should not be balconies on the second floor that would impede on neighboring properties' privacy. Third condition, add planting materials that would be of a sufficient height to screen the below properties for privacy purposes. And did I miss anything?
Following the topography.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
That's encompassed. And we mentioned setting it back further from the backyard and removing massing to achieve, to do that, I think.
Yes.
Reduction in massing.
Yeah, I think we leave, though, that condition in there, which says revise the design to reduce the variation of roof forms to be more proportional with the home. So I
Right.
think that one works
Right.
okay.
As long as it's not just in the front of the house, I think it's holistically too, not just, I just wanted to be clear, there was kind of a focus towards the front, so.
And we can also leave the condition that says revise the design to reduce the monumental entry.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
And for the privacy hedges, I know it's only, we said for the neighbor below, but I think the neighbors on the side as well did bring up those concerns as well. So not only for the neighbors on the bottom, but also on the sides as well.
Okay, so Mr. G, are we good on these?
Yes, so the first condition is to restudy the second-story massing, so it is following the topography and not cantilevering out, and it's more closer to the street. No second-story balcony. Third condition, adding planting materials that are appropriate height to screen the neighbors in the rear and side. Condition to simplify the roof lines, and condition to.
Basically, the two conditions you had already included in there.
I would say the first condition, we also mentioned an actual reduction in massing too on the second floor. So I think that.
Reduce the overall.
Yeah, massing
of
on
the
the second floor.
building by.
Right,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And what about conditions in the staff report?
Yeah, that was included.
We are, yep.
Including those two.
Yep.
Yes.
So with that, do we have a motion to approve with those conditions?
Correct.
Yep.
I motion to approve with those
That
conditions.
was Board Member Lockruff. And do we have a second?
Yes, second.
Board Member Welch. Okay, motion to approve with conditions. Board Member Lockruff?
Yes.
Board Member Welch?
Yes.
And Chairperson Kaskanian?
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
3-0.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I gotta do mine. So you prepare your record of decision.
I appreciate your time. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. G. Thank you so much. Take care. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Doing the best I can here. We're gonna.
One speaker card for the next
Okay, and we're still having some technical difficulties, so we'll have to do the same thing we did before. Okay, thank you. So this last item before you is the development, well, I should say the expansion. It's the expansion of the Armenian Apostolic Church of Glendale. And this case is located at 1015 North Central Avenue, PDR case number 002652-2023. I'm gonna go pretty quick through the slides since it's pretty late. So the applicant's proposal is an interior and exterior remodel of the existing church. And the existing 7,880 square foot two-story building or church was built circa 1941. They are proposing to construct or again expand the existing church at the ground level, and that would include an addition of a main altar and prayer altar, also a backstage area behind the main altar and a baptismal area, and also removal and replacement of the existing church tower with new dome bell towers. They're also proposing to construct a new detached 1,156 square foot accessory building, which for purposes of an outdoor altar. And it'll have some bathrooms and storage area, and that would be in the courtyard area. And they're also proposing to construct multiple 24-foot high columns and arched architectural elements and an 18-foot high entry gateway, all within the courtyard area. And lastly, perimeter walls and gates. I should say fences, they're not necessarily walls, but here is the project location at the corner of fronting several streets, Central Avenue to the east, Fairway Avenue to the north, and then Glen Oaks Boulevard to the south. There is currently also a preschool on the site. There's also on-site parking with 31 spaces on the site. So this is the surrounding context. The project site is located in the R1250 zone, which is multifamily, but a lot of places of worship are actually located in these higher multifamily dense neighborhoods. Coincidentally, it's also across the street from another place of worship to the east. So it's again, not uncommon to have these types of uses in these in multifamily locations or zones. The site is 1.2 acres. We've talked about the frontage. We've talked about the existing development and the current uses that are there now, aside from the church. We talked about there's an existing daycare, the parking, and their proposal in terms of updating the courtyard, the new altars being proposed, etc. There is one existing protected tree on site, and the applicant's in communication with the urban forestry in terms of relocation or removal of the tree, of the oak tree. And if it's not, then it's staying. The applicant can. And this is the location of the existing church at the corner. It's just some photos. Currently, there is a building permit on record. They've already started some interior remodeling of the expansion, moving forward with the church. This is the next phase, if you will. And they did receive approval already from the Planning Commission already for some requests for, one, the conditional use permit, because that is a permit required when you're expanding, in this case, an existing church in a multifamily zone. So that was already approved. And also the variances that were being requested associated with their project proposal. That as well was approved by the Planning Commission. And this is the proposed site plan. The areas highlighted in yellow are those expansions to the existing building, the church area, and then this would be the new outdoor altar. This is the second floor plan where they're not proposing Anything that'll remain as is. There's offices and that sort of thing upstairs. And then the roof plan. These are the views of the new remodeled church. This would be the view from Central Avenue. This would be at the corner of Central and Fairview, and this would be the northerly, as I'm pointing here, view as well. Here's another view of it. The central courtyard, as you focus and walk in through the courtyard moving south, you will have the altar that'll open up to the courtyard with the two on the columns flanking on both sides of the courtyard. And what I'll just kind of highlight, since it's already in your packet, some of the proposal in terms of the colors and materials. Let me kind of go back to some of these. So the proposal, again, of the existing church includes the main altar. We talked about the overall height being consistent with the existing building height at 55 feet. The design and the architectural style of the church is inspired by and based on traditional Armenian architecture. Exterior facades of the buildings are primarily composed of travertine stone, sloped metal roofs, the dome-shaped roof forms, and transparent elements and windows. The massing is broken up by recessed building forms, breaks in walls and planes, window treatment, color combination, all which helps avoid those long horizontal facades and minimizing a boxy outline, especially along those street-facing facades. And moving along, the proposed color palette we discussed, or the material palette in general, limestone, basalt cladding, pitched and octagonal metal roof forms, glazing, and warm accent colors, again, help to reinforce the reading of different volumes and appropriately articulates the building exterior walls. This is a view of the courtyard and featuring the 24-foot high columns and other architectural elements and that 18-foot high entry gate and the new altar towards the south. We talked about the material palette and the fencing and then landscaping. And lastly, staff recommends approval of the project with the 3 conditions outlined in the staff report. One was to clearly depict the planters in the city's parkway. Also introduce the street tree as required by the city's urban forestry. General comments, this will be addressed during plan check in the future, or to identify the trash location on the site. And also to submit drawing details of junctions where the materials intersect. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Milka. Any questions for staff?
So, Milka, walk through the sort of history here. So there was some kind of a hearing with the planning hearing officer.
Yes.
They ruled on something, which I'm curious to find out what that was. Then it was appealed to the planning commission?
Yes.
Okay.
So it went to the protocol would be, it would first go to the planning hearing officer for those planning approvals or requests. In this case, it would be the conditional use permit and the variance requests. And the reason why the hearing officer denied it, because there was new information that was brought into the record and by a member of the public. And so the planning hearing officer determined that additional research needed to be done. There is and it's based on if the project is historic or not, or I should say the building. And the team, the applicant has designed, their design team, they do have a historic report that was submitted, which you also have in your packets. And because it was appealed, so it was appealed, let me go back. So it was denied for that reason alone, just to provide more information for CEQA purposes. It was denied, it was therefore then appealed, and it was appealed to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission made the determination that it was not, the building is not historic, and so they adopted the CEQA. That was, in this case, we had originally recommended that it was exempt from CEQA review. And so the Planning Commission reversed the planning hearing officer's decision. They did, at the time during the hearing, receive public testimony from the applicants, in this case, a historian that is on record. And also, they brought information. They were here present at the hearing, and at that time, the public testimony was received, and the Planning Commission, at that time, then made the decision. They made a motion to reverse the planning hearing officer's decision, determine that the information was adequate, and no additional environmental review was necessary in this case. And so they approved it, and after that, the 15-day appeal period passed. There were no appeals were received.
Isn't it normally the Historic Preservation Commission's purview to make those determinations?
Not necessarily. First, we were dealing with the variance and the conditional use permit, and so the protocol and the way it's by law, first you go to the planning hearing officer. So no, the Historic Preservation Commission did not, it's not within their purview to review the CUP nor the variance. It would be the planning hearing officer, and if it's appealed, it goes to the Planning Commission.
Okay, so what is exactly, do we have any standing here on that? Because we've had evidence submitted to us that it is in fact historic. So do we have any jurisdiction on that or no?
Well, the board would have to, again, this is for the design, and the board would have to make the decision whether they agree with the design, they want to move forward with the design like you would typically any other project. And in this case, the Planning Commission has already determined that the project is not historic, and they accepted the exemptions for the project. If the design review board today determines that it's inadequate, the Planning Commission already determined that it was adequate. So
I'm asking what's exactly our jurisdiction here? What do we?
That would be at the board's decision whether they want to. This is a different type of hearing. This is just for the design review, if you will, of the project. So it would be up to the board if they determine that this is not adequate, but I guess, do you see what I'm going with this? One body already opined that it was adequate.
Mm-hmm.
So now there's going to be now another approving body saying it's not adequate. That
I'm not saying I'm saying that. I'm just trying to get clarity on what exactly is our standing here.
Fortunately, we have Eric Krause to.
Good evening, members of the board. I heard a little bit what you guys were discussing. I was sitting at my desk just in case. Oh, sorry. Sitting at my desk in case I needed to chime in a little bit. Obviously, I'm not dressed for the meeting, but
You're good.
So it sounded like you're asking about whether or not the design review board can take in the information you've been received and do something different with it. So if that was the case, so basically in secret determination, we had a decision that was made on the project. This is another decision in the step of this development, which means it kind of almost reopens the secret discussion. So if you guys wanted to, or the board members wanted to look at the environmental on your own, you could do that, but then you wouldn't. If you made a determination that you did have a historic resource, it has to be based on substantial evidence, so you'd have to make a finding that you believe there's substantial evidence in the record that determine that, and make a determination that it is a historic resource. And so basically, the Planning Commission, based on the information that was submitted to them and what they reviewed, they made a determination that it was not a historic resource. So you wouldn't, I don't know if you're necessarily overturning that decision so much, you're kind of making a decision on your own. But if you were to do that, then you would no longer be the review authority at that point. Then it would have to go to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Correct. Yeah, so we could motion to send it to historic review.
You would have to, well, they're only the decision-making body if there's a historic resource on the site.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think if something is considered potentially a historic resource, it's my understanding that it could go to them
Correct,
as well.
yeah. But
So
that's
if there's
the- yeah.
potential, if we find there's sufficient evidence that
You
there's
would have to
potential
make that finding in order to do that, correct, yeah.
Right.
But it was already reviewed, is what we're saying, that this was already reviewed to see if it was historic, and the Planning Commission deemed that it was not historic, correct?
Correct, yeah. They made a finding that the property is not considered a historic resource under CEQA.
Okay. Did they have other historians from the city staff, any on their side that conducted reviews, or was
We
that-
had our city attorneys that were present
city
at the meeting,
attorney?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, let me ask this. Did staff feel that there's maybe some merit in that it's a historic resource, which is why they denied it in the first place?
Well, basically what happened was the conditional use permit and variance were the two items that were being reviewed. I don't remember exactly what the variance was for, but the CUP was basically for a church in a multifamily zone with a daycare component or a school. So essentially, it's this, and it happens quite a bit where we get last minute information that just kind of gets dumped in our lap. And so then we have to kind of react to that. So the material was submitted. It wasn't clear whether we thought it was substantial or not. So we denied the CUP and variance application. And at that point, then CEQA doesn't apply to a project that gets denied. And so essentially that was opening the door for the Planning Commission to be able to hear it during kind of more of a public setting, rather than it being done, kind of behind closed doors almost. So we did deny the project, or the planning hearing officer denied it, to allow the Planning Commission to weigh in on that subject during a public hearing.
And it wasn't denied because it was deemed historic or anything along those lines?
it was
Denied because you just needed more time to review what was basically
because
provided.
evidence was presented into the record, and that's the main reason why it was denied, so that the Planning Commission could make that determination.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Is there any other questions?
One more question. If we did want to consider further, is it possible to do a continuance or something like that to be able to, is that, within our purview to select that?
Well, you would have, if you were to, I'm Eric Cross, by the way, I'm not sure if I properly introduced myself. You would have to, if you wanted to continue it to have this evaluated, then that is a little bit different, because that means we'd have to prepare an initial study checklist and then almost start the environmental review process over again, basically. So if you said that you wanted to continue it to learn more about the environmental, then we'd have to kind of start the process over again.
And just to add, what was reviewed prior to coming here, what was reviewed by the Planning Commission, I'm assuming is all of that to see if it was historic or not. So if we were to do it again, like let's say a review in this case, it would just be doing the same thing that planning did, just so I get clarity on that.
You would, and essentially the information that was provided to us late this afternoon was essentially the same information that the Planning Commission looked at.
Cool.
But the staff did do an environmental review of that, right? Which would have included historical assessment, correct?
Correct.
That's standard procedure.
Correct. So we do environmental review for 99% of the projects that come through the city, just because everything under our codes is considered discretionary action, which automatically triggers an environmental review. So in this case, based on the information that was provided by the applicant in terms of the historic assessment, staff was in concurrence with that information that was submitted, so that we ended up exempting the project based on the information that was included with the application.
I see, okay.
Any other questions?
Not at this time. Thank
Okay.
you.
I guess I'll ask it of the applicant.
Okay. We have one speaker card. Aram Alajajan.
Yes, hello.
Thank you.
Good late evening for you.
Your name, please? State
I'm Aram Alajajan, I'm the project architect, and we're here to discuss the design and architecture. And I believe, thank you, Milka, she's done a great job. She basically described what the changes are, proposed changes to the existing church. So the Armenian Apostolic Church, the Western Diocese, has purchased this property 2022. And we had constantly check whether it's historic or not. The answer was no. It's not registered in the United States Historic Registry, not registered in California, not registered in Glendale. We have a historic report. Our historic consultant, Chen Copland's report is in there. I'm sure you've seen it. Okay, that's, but I'm not going to talk about that because there's water behind the bridge, you know. So the architecture basically triggers the, you know, Armenian Apostolic Church traditionally has a baptismal font and a prayer altar, which is part of the church's ceremony, you know, for baptizing kids. And also the altar, the existing altar, didn't even you know, work with the religion of the apostolic religion. So we had to enlarge it and create that stage, which calls BEM, you know, and it has 3 different levels and so forth. So any kind of a faith or religion that takes it over, they're going to have to, you know, compose that. Whether it's a synagogue or, you know, a mosque or no, they had to remodel it. So that's what it is. So basically, in fact, we had reduced the number of seats which are in the existing church, brought it back, and we had the current permit that is under construction right now. We're complying with the ADA code because the old building didn't have any of those, you know. So the building was deteriorated, structure was hopelessly, you know, open to the weather, you know, with a tilted tower that, you know, we don't know it could collapse to the next earthquake or not. However, the other element that we are adding in the courtyard, which would be the open altar, that is also triggered by the church's faith, because having the toilets within the church is not permitted. So the public toilet has to be outside. So we use that opportunity to create an open altar, which would be used by the school children for the prayers in the morning and so forth. And the property is going to be enclosed with a fence, you know, decorative fence and a gateway coming in. Comments, the conditions that are put in there, we fully agreed. We'll go through it, you know, and this is not the first church that we, about 25 years ago, designed and built the Armenian Catholic Church as an example of how the materials are related to the architecture by itself, the archways, the elements, the domes, and so forth. And if you have any questions, you know, I'm here to answer those. You know, if you're interested for more explanation of any of these items, you know, I'm be more than happy to give you a.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So the primary driver of the outdoor altar was the creation of bathroom facilities. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
I'm sorry?
The primary driver of having the outdoor altar was because of the need to have bathrooms.
Yeah. The public restrooms were not restrooms. There were just one restroom in there, within the
whole church.
Existing. No, not an existing building at all. So it will not fit 225 people coming into Easter or for any ceremony, you know, using one bathroom. So the bathrooms are being built outside, which would be behind that open altar area. So the public would be attending to that, you know, to that location.
Is the goal to use that as for outdoor masses per se, or things like you mentioned the school children having morning prayers?
Yes.
Would you have, you know, like vis-a-vis COVID, you know, if we had a situation like that?
Yeah, in the case of the COVID, that's a good point. You brought up a good point, because we've seen churches locking their doors during the time of the COVID. And just a good example right here across the college, the project that we designed, they were forced to put the outdoor small altar in there so the people can come and pray. So that also triggers a good idea to create an altar outside. If there's any COVID or any pandemic like that, so would the people try to use the altar, or for any reason they could be outside. But it's mainly is to use for the children for the praying in the mornings and also.
Okay. I would like if you could speak to the design aesthetic, if you
Okay.
would, because certainly I noticed that there's similarities, between those two parishes. So could you talk about what's behind all of that? Why that design aesthetic in particular is being applied?
Okay. Well, basically, what you're seeing, the architecture comes from the traditional Armenian architecture. The direction here, and the archways, the arches, and strong massive elements are part of the Armenian architecture. If you look back in the churches that are started to build from the 4th century on until recently built churches, they all have this kind of a massing. And domes are identifying is another identification of on the Armenian architecture. So normally when you enter the church, it has a narthex. So we kept the narthex, and we kept the naval part of which is the main sitting hall for the church, and the two elements that are adding on the plan wise. One side is the baptismal altar, font, and the other side is Can you bring up the plan, Milka? I'm sorry. The other side is the prayer altar, and a main altar with a dome enhancing and bringing a light down from the sky. So the purpose is to inspire the believers. When you go in the church, the light comes from the top. That is traditionally given from coming back from the centuries. But if you look at the plan, by sighting those two elements on the left and right, we're creating a plan as a cross. The main altar in the center, and two baptismal font, and the prayer altar on the side, with a existing naval element that we're not touching it, we're basically enhancing it. So it will create that cross in the plan, cross section. Similarly, the landscaping is designed the same way. We have a cross-looking courtyard, enhanced by four corners of the olive trees, which will be illuminated at night. So the olive gardens would be, and with the landscaping would be illuminated on the side. So the courtyard is looking at the cross too. Symbolically, those elements carried on from the traditional 4th century architecture, where the plans definitely were like a cross looking and a dome in the top. So we carry that style of architecture here. That's the inspiration here.
So each of those two new chapels will have a domed top, as well as the main altar inside the church?
Yeah, well, the baptismal altar, yes, it does have it.
That will have a dome, but
That
not
would
the
have a
other
dome.
one.
There's another dome which symbolizes a bell tower, and will have, you can see it in the corner of symbolizes the corner entry. That has a little dome on it as well. So it's a bell tower, but technically there's no bell in there. As you know, it's not permitted, throughout, I don't know if other states do, but we learned that in California it's not permitted to have bells. The only church that has it's down here at the Isabel.
Yeah, because I've heard it.
Right.
I've heard a bell. So
Yeah, they have it over there. So when you're in Colorado Street, you can hear the bells ring around 12 o'clock or so. Yeah, so that's and a multi-layer, walls also come from a traditional, and I don't want to turn this to a lecture, but traditional Armenian architecture. Back in the 7th century, where the walls was massive, and the churches start getting larger and larger. They had to break those massing into the segmental walls that was used. That technique is used in this outdoor altar, and a multi-layer entrances and so forth. It's softening those massive entrances with a multi-layer step-like cascading effect that will, it will traditionally repeat that. The crosses has openness into it, so we let the light penetrate through the cross where the viewer is in the courtyard and so forth. Same with the bell towers. The light will come in through the inside in. So when you are in that environment, you feel the more of a light and has a very strong spiritual feeling. It gives you that. Yeah. So that's the main intention and inspiration behind this.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We don't have any more cards, but callers.
We do have a caller. We need to
Do that thing again. Yeah.
get him in.
And is it just one caller, Milka?
I believe so. Oh, no, one more. Maybe two.
Okay.
If anyone else wants to speak, fill out a speaker card.
Okay, so we have Francesca Smith. Francesca?
Hello? I can't hear you all. If I'm on, my name is Francesca Smith. I'm a qualified architectural historian as established in federal regulations with nearly 4 decades of experience, including as a principal architectural historian for the state of California. I'm privileged to have been a former member of the Design Review Board. Regarding the historic significance of the North Glendale Methodist Church with its school, community center buildings, and grounds, it was found locally eligible for designation in my evaluation that was dated November 23rd. Its eligibility was acknowledged in a staff report to the Planning Hearing Officer appeal, and it was confirmed in my July 24th letter to the Planning Commission. My report is based on substantial evidence, not guesstimates, not arguments, not blanks, as the consultants for the owners did. What I provided was substantial evidence to support the conclusion that it's a historic resource. The fact, it's regardless of the fact that other conclusions may have been made by the applicant's consultant. It doesn't need to have been previously identified through a listing or a survey to be significant under CEQA, and it is indeed the lead agency's decision to decide whether or not it's a historic resource. It should properly be heard by the Historic Preservation Commission, not the DRB or the Planning Commission. No slight to you. The applicant's consultants failed to identify the church building's architect. His name was Harold Ladd Pierce. She did not name the better examples of the style that she mentioned that were in her report in Glendale. Notably, she has, to my knowledge, never identified a property in Glendale to be locally significant. Now the architect has been identified, and we see that he has collaborated with a parishioner on this church and at least one other church design. However, all she said was that he was not considered a master. That was in the July Planning Hearing Commission meeting. Let me remind you that the architect himself need not be considered a master for this property or any other to be historically significant. Of the 7 other churches that he designed, at least 2 are considered historically significant for their architecture. 5 of his other projects, including residence and a theater, have been previously identified for their architecture. The consultant further erred by not evaluating the entire property, which is a serious problem. It contains grounds, playfield, and interconnected mid-century modern buildings that relate to the main church design, which their consultant claimed they did not. The first is the Education Building. It was completed in 1947 by Edwin Shoemate, AIA. It has a tall radius curved fluted tower at the northeast corner that relates directly to the church steeple. The Fellowship Hall, 1951, clad in brick and plaster, features cantilevered historic awnings, just like the church. The Classroom Edition was 1961 by local architects Ord Inslee and Senefield, who one of whom at least was on the design review board. It has fluted engaged colonnettes, horizontal permanent awnings, brick and plaster wall finishes, and a tall chimney form that faces Fairview. With its school and community buildings, it was found and clearly demonstrated to be eligible for local designation under 5 of the 10 criteria in the ordinance as a district. It only needs to qualify under 1 to be designated. Because this case has been clearly proven, I ask that you all recommend that this goes to the DRB. And I'd like to mention also that substantial evidence under CEQA is information that supports a fair argument that a project may impact the environment. It includes facts, reasonable assumptions, and expert opinions. Substantial evidence is enough relevant information to support the conclusion. It is only based on facts, not argument or speculation, and it's based on expert opinions that are supported by facts.
I don't know if you could hear it, but thank you.
Not
Your time
substantial
is up.
evidence is argument, speculation, or
Francesca, your time is
unsubstantiated
up.
opinion.
You want me to drop
like
the call?
A consultant who
Okay.
doesn't even know the name of the building or find the
Okay.
architect.
Thank you. We do have another caller.
You did let her go over.
Yes, we gave her 4 minutes. Yes. We have one more caller, and his name is Damian Sullivan. So I'm waiting for the call to be transferred. Hello, Damien?
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Damian Sullivan.
3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, Damien, we can hear you. I don't know if you can hear us, but we can hear you. You have 3 minutes.
I'm not sure if the technical difficulties. I'm just going to forge ahead, in assuming that possibly you hear me and I don't hear you. My name is Damian Sullivan. I'm a resident of Glendale. I was calling. I had spoken at the previous DRB meeting. I actually concur with all of the evidence that was provided to you by Francesca Smith, who is a very qualified Los Angeles, California historian and somebody who works on the very serious historic landmarking efforts in Glendale and around Los Angeles. The information and the evidence that she provided, which does provide a lot of historical evidence that was not presented by the developer's consultant, is actual factual evidence that was not considered at the time, and I believe should be considered. And I wanted to say that I think that, as fantastic as it is for things to be reviewed by the Design Review Board, I really believe that this should be heard by the Historic Preservation Commission, which is probably the most underutilized commission in the city for being called upon to serve its purpose. These are exactly the types of questionable situations where there is if there's any kind of dispute, Why would the DRB not just refer it to HPC for accurate and appropriate examination? That's their area of expertise. Let them do their job. Also, this development project, it started out as one thing, and then it just incrementally grew and became something else was added to it, something else was added to it. This is not, there's a feeling, I think a lot of people in the city wonder about full, transparency and honesty when it comes to how certain projects are. They start as one thing, and then they just kind of more paperwork is added and just an additional piece to the project, which is actually a substantial change to the project, involves demolitions and things. I believe that you have been provided very solid evidence that requires and deserves to be examined. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Damien.
We have another caller.
Okay.
Victoria Maron. Or Marin. Okay, here we go. Hello, Victoria?
Yes, hello. My name is Victoria Emran.
We can hear you.
All right, great. So sorry, kind of cut off just for a moment. I understand both the architect. Oh, is it? It's working now? Okay, great. I understand the architectural need for review and all of the above, and I understand all the concerns that are mentioned. And I understand all the long-term concerns. However, as a long-term standing member and in the church from the Armenian Apostolic Church, I've seen I see that the church and the community here in Glendale need this institution and the church to stand, because this is something that is needed for the church community. It's needed for the community here at large. A huge population of Armenians live in Glendale as a statistic, and it's important that the community is served to that extent as something that is not only important for their cultural heritage, but also their Christian heritage, which stands firm within our beliefs as Armenians. So I believe that, yes, there's going to definitely be difficulties throughout, whether it's architectural and definitely changes. I mean, every construction project has changes over time, maybe additions, not additions. But as a Glendale resident, as a person that's lived here for a long time and seen the Armenian community grow, I believe this is a vital aspect of having the church community, the church built, because this will be a home for all the Glendale Armenian community to come to foster not only the growth for the youth, for the future families, and honestly the full community at large. And being a huge, vast majority of individuals and residents in Glendale, I don't see these honest issues, these things that I understand the architectural standpoint may be issues. But every construction project has issues, and I think the main goal is to build this church because it's to serve the community, and that's why it's there. And as, a person that lives in Glendale, I think this is an important project that will pretty much guide the entire community to come to not only be served by the church, but also build greater networking along the entire community that's here in Glendale. Otherwise, as a person that is from the church and a member of the church for over 17 years, I would say it's a beautiful place to foster also growth with the Glendale city, which I know our Archbishop Hovdan Dedan has also done and fostered beautiful connections across the board. So I don't see it as a negative thing. If anything, it'd be a positive thing for the community and for the Glendale community at large. That's all I have to say, and I don't mind being contacted for further questions or anything, any of the above.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other callers?
No one there was one earlier, but I guess they hung up is what I'm
Okay.
reading.
So we're going to close in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, the hearing, public hearing.
Rebuttal?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry, there is a rebuttal, yes.
Thank you for giving an opportunity again. And I would say, we've gone through this before, that 11th hour, Francesca Smith and David Sullivan showed up on the first meeting where the planning hearing officer was present. And then on the second meeting, we had our consultant that we believe that this is not historic, so the consultant and the report, where the planning commission overturned and approved the project. Now, after that, she had an opportunity to appeal. Why didn't she appeal then? And she's calling in the 11th hour again and sending a letter. I think her idea is to prolong this project longer and longer. We've been on this since 2022, you know. I mean, the church and the community is suffering, and how long we can stretch this process on and on. And in addition to that, I didn't get a chance to submit this because, there was no appeal on no question about the historic. But our consultant back then, when the letter was presented, he wrote the answers to the letter of Francesca Smith, and I'd like to submit this formally to the department. And if you ever want to take a look at it, all the points are clearly described here that is non-historic. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a question? Did you have a question?
Just be great to see that.
Okay.
So,
Any questions? No?
No, thank you.
Milka, if she could take a look at that. Okay, we're going to close the public hearing now and go into deliberation. Does anyone want to begin?
Your turn.
Okay. Yeah, I think that first of all, I think the design is lovely, and I have no objection to the design. What I'm struggling with is the historic aspect. I know that it has been evaluated thoroughly by planning, and I do want to kind of take a peek at this while we deliberate. But I think just looking at the existing building, I do see such strong elements of historic, streamlined modern and Art Deco, and so, which, in Glendale is a very defining characteristic, and I am torn because I love your design, but I also, respect the past and the history of Glendale, and so I think, yeah, I would love to talk to my colleagues about that, and I would love to hear your thoughts, and I'll take a quick peek at this reply too while we're discussing.
I'm of a similar mind. I really have no objection to the design. In fact, I think it's quite nice. I understand and I appreciate the historical context that was provided to me, so I understand some of the the thinking and the rationale behind it. That it's not just a copycat, that there's history and a basis for the particular design. From a site planning perspective, I actually kind of like the idea of that outdoor altar and the multifunctional use. I would like to not see it used for, wedding parties and things like that, but to as an alternative for Mass in the event of another COVID situation or something like that. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I think, using the sort of the turf stone kind of material, the grasscrete or whatever you're doing it there, will make it, a welcoming space, usable as a patio place where you could set up chairs for a Mass or just use it as an open courtyard. I think that works well. Again, this is not our usual sort of project to review. In fact, I think that this is the very first church I've seen on DRB. So, but I'm not going to necessarily apply the same standards that I would for housing or multifamily projects. So, it's a unique site. It's a dominant corner in that area. I can't tell you how many times I've driven right by this property. So to have something that is a little bit monumental, a little bit that stands out, that's prominent, that draws the eye, I think is an appropriate for a location like this and for a use like this. So I do applaud that. But as with Board Member Lockeroff, it is a lovely church there, you know. I really appreciate the Art Deco characteristics and the streamlined modern elements. Some of it has been discarded over the years, so it's not really a true great example. But I can see how there might be some merit in considering it for a historic resource. But again, has the time passed? Do we have purview here? This is what I'm struggling with. I don't want to necessarily step on the toes of another commission, which, you know, had jurisdiction on it at the time, reviewed evidence, took findings, you know, made a decision. I'm not sure that it's really our purview to do that again and have conflicting opinions from two different commissions. And, you know, as the applicant said, is that really just going to delay the process here? You know, possibly. So maybe that was, you know, the goal, but, you know, I do believe that, you know, when there is a historic resource, that a proper environmental review should be done, mitigation, all that stuff, and, you know, the Historic Planning Commission, Historic Preservation Commission, excuse me, should be there, the true body, neither us nor the Planning Commission. But I'm not sure whether we can, you know, unring that bell. Oh, that's right. There's no bells in Glendale. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. First off, hi, Ahmed. I do want to say, you know, I think being on this board has opened my eyes to a lot of these like historical stuff. Cause like, you know, driving in LA, you're like, damn, like a lot of the architecture, like the actual history of LA isn't really like there as much, right? But, and I do get the point of having those types of commissions. I do agree with, like, you know, the reviews and all that stuff. But that being said, this has already been reviewed by the city. It has been reviewed by the Planning Commission. So it has done those steps. Those steps have been done. The same case that was presented to us just an hour before the meeting was the same case that was presented to the Planning Commission as well. And they were the ones who reviewed it and deemed that, you know, this was not historic. That being said, I am in full support of this project and would, you know, excited to see this move forward. In a time when Armenians are being persecuted, in times when a genocide is taking place against Armenians and our churches are being destroyed, I'm very happy to see that I can go have religious freedom in this country and go pray just down the street. So thank you for putting this together. I'm very excited for this to come and come alive in our city. So thank you.
Thank you. I hear that, and that it is a vital project, and I do want to see it move forward. I just, again, I'm hung up on whether or not we can, and this, again, maybe more, again, to this question to staff, is whether is there a way for us to condition approval upon, like, you know, historic review board reviewing and approving that, or saying that it's not historic, you know. I guess that.
Sure. So
yeah.
Members of the Design Review Board, I kind of, before I came in here, I printed out kind of what the purview is for the HPC.
Okay.
And so I'll just read it straight out of the code. So basically it says, and this is under their powers and duties generally, that's under Title II of the Glendale Municipal Code.
Yeah.
And it says to make recommendations concerning and render decisions on design review applications affecting designated historic resources pending designation as historic resources, and potential historic resources, including protected interiors and landscaping. So they would only have the purview to review this if it was a pending resource, already listed resource, or it was found to be eligible. So that's That's
potential.
their purview, basically,
Yeah,
to
it
be
says
able to review.
potential, that's the,
Correct,
yeah, yeah.
So in order for them to even take a look at this, it would have to be determined to be potentially eligible.
Mm.
And that's for designated districts and overlay zones as well. They have purview over those two areas.
And I would just add that I think that, you know, if the Historical Society or people are still interested, they're still going to have one more bite at the apple, because even if we approved it here, it could still be appealed to the city council, and those issues could be put into the record there. So, you know, if they miss that opportunity to appeal it at planning commission, you know, us rendering a decision will give them another opportunity to appeal it. So
Correct,
it's been
yeah.
put into the record, you know, we've made our comments as
Right.
part of the record here. So I think that they could, you know, take that argument to the city council if they wanted to pursue that. But I don't think that we really have standing, as it were, to adjudicate on that at this point.
Right.
That's my opinion, anyway.
Right, given that it was already reviewed
Exactly.
by planning,
Exactly.
is if it hadn't been through that, I would agree. Okay. It's a tough one.
Okay,
So with that, I'll move for approval of the project with conditions.
With the three conditions that are listed in the staff report.
Correct, yes.
Am I able to abstain? I can't because you're chair, because there's only three of us, or?
I mean, maybe motion to, you could motion it and then you could.
You could
not-
second it and
Okay,
still
a second.
abstain,
Okay,
yes.
second, yeah, that's true. Second.
Okay, so it's a motion by Board Member Welch to approve with conditions, and it was a second by Board Member Lockrov?
Correct.
Okay, Board Member Welch,
Yes.
Board Member Lockrov,
I'll abstain, and that's okay.
you're abstaining?
Or not abstain, yeah.
Yeah, abstain.
You can abstain.
I can abstain, it
Yeah.
still will go through, it's with two. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
And Chair Kaskanian?
yes.
Okay, then motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
I move, we adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.